My name is Pierre, and this is Brett, and we're going to share a little bit of our story, our modernization story, and talk about our success and our lessons learned. More importantly, in terms of that. Let's start with some introductions, though. So my name is Pierre Briganza. I am apparently a senior director of architecture. Recently moved into GRM East West, and we'll talk a little bit about what that means. But the last 6 months, I've been focusing on global initiatives. But this presentation was created when we were both in commercial lines, so a lot of the content came from commercial lines as well. I got 2 kids. I got a 17 and a 15-year-old, so hopefully close to retirement, maybe. Depends on their education expense, I guess. What do I like doing? I travel a lot. I do like traveling. I love cultures. And I just submitted my dissertation, so I'm 30 days from completing my doctorate. So I'm really excited about that. Yeah.
So I'm Brett Matthews. I'm our release train engineer.
Yeah.
One of my friends here in the front's like, "Oh, release train engineer. What is that you do?" I would say that it's a little bit of everything. Yeah. Pierre says, "Make it happen," and I say, "Okay, let's make it happen." So responsible for the day-to-day of our 5 modernization, we call them evolution teams, as well as owning our architecture backlog. So work hand in hand with our senior product owner to manage that backlog. I always like to say, you get all the smart guys in the room. They like to start everything but finish nothing, so they need a little kick in the ass sometimes. But I was married last year. Just built the new house, so I have some expenses. They're a little bit different than Pierre's. Probably not as close to retirement as Pierre is, but just looking forward to sharing some of our learnings with you, and we're hoping some of the stuff will resonate. So, we want to set a little bit of context about who we are, give you a little bit of information about Liberty Mutual, how big we are, some of the challenges we face, through our modernization sort of journey or agile transformation. Yeah. I think a lot of the stuff will resonate with some folks in the room that work in larger organizations and dealing with some of those pains. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Me and Pierre will do a little fireside chat here for you, ask some questions, try to make it real. We're asking that if you do have questions, like as we're doing that, throw your hand up. Like we'll try to make it as interactive as possible. We're trying to get as much engagement as we can. And then Pierre will finish us off with a little bit of the key technical lessons learned, and talk a little bit about our global work that we have going on.
Yep, and some leadership styles.
Yep. So Liberty Mutual, like who are we? Sometimes me and Pierre take this stuff for granted. We just assume everybody knows who Liberty Mutual is. I don't know if you guys have seen our new commercials, Doug and the emu. Yeah.
Who's seen it?
Anyone?
There you go.
Yeah, see? Yeah. Brand recognition, that's great. So we are the 5th largest P&C insurer in the country. We're $41.6 billion in revenue annually. So we have nearly 50,000 employees, over 800 offices, and we span 30 countries. So I think the gist of this is we're large, right? Yeah. So any transformation, any changes that we want to make from an architecture and a cultural perspective, they take time, right? It's a trickle-down effect. We work hard. We're hearts and minds, that type of stuff. So, we've been working through all that. So GRM, Global Retail Markets, the area that Pierre and I work in, consists of 3 different areas. So we have our personal insurance. Think of this as cars, home, things like that. LibertyMutual.com, Doug and the emu, that sort of stuff. So this is how we reach in the individual consumer. So then we have our business insurance stuff. So think about that as hair salon, small local business, sub shop. We do some other retail. We do farms. So farms is a big one for us. And then lastly is our East-West operation. So this is our property casualty, other suite of products that we make available internationally, and Pierre will talk a little bit about that later.
I think what's really interesting is that Brett has a lot of experience in personal lines before he came to commercial lines. I've been in commercial lines over 15 years, and now we both moved towards global. So we do have a little bit of experience in all 3 places to kind of talk about it. So.
Yeah, it's funny because all the you move around, but you see all the areas are facing the same challenges, right?
Yeah,
trying to take our learnings and kind of spread things throughout the company, like I mentioned.
All right, so the best place we thought we could start is to talk a little bit about what are we trying to solve, right? What are the challenges? And my hope is that these challenges could resonate, right? Because in the end, even though we are an insurance company, within IT, we're always trying to solve the same kind of problems, right? So monolithic applications, right? You know, we tend to have big applications that do everything, right? Who here has a monolithic application? It's just going to be an interactive place. Yeah. So I mean, it resonates, right? It's something that we live with. It's something we own. And at one point, monolithic applications made sense. But now, because of the rate of change, because of the customer demand, we got to be creative in how to take these monolithic applications and make change faster, right? Tight coupling dependencies around changes. You know, it's like. I remember having a conversation with a director once, and you know, we were talking about all the kind of features we can do, and we were so proud about it. And then suddenly someone came in and said, "Can we change it and think differently?" And we said, "Nope, that doesn't work. You got to follow this process." Right? That's brittleness. That's saying that it works well, but it only works well for these things. You know, so that's a challenge, especially in this time in this you know. Time of challenging markets. Existing technical debt. Oh, I can tell you a whole bunch of stories on this, right? So existing technical debt is sometimes we make conscious decisions. We say, you know, because of time, because of cost, because of talent, because of delivery, we are okay to make some choices, and we will come back and fix it. So how many of us came back and fixed the problem that we said will come back? Nobody? That's right, nobody. So that's the tough part about technical debt, is that our intention is good, but many times we never get back to finish that story, you know, so to speak. Inconsistency in where we build products, right? There's a great story to tell with that. So especially coming from architecture, every time we build a product, we learn so many things, and we go, hey, this time we will build this product differently, because we have so many learnings. But what happens is we never go back and fix the rest of the product. So now you have different versions of products with different maturities and different SLAs, right? And what happens is it becomes more complex. The system becomes even more complex with good intentions. And the last thing is infrastructure provisioning, right? So depending on, you know, on-prem, off-prem, depending on what vendor dependency you have, you could have different systems using different infrastructures, and that itself can be very complex as well. So these are challenges that should really resonate with every one of us, because these are challenges not common to the insurance industry. These are challenges that are there, you know, in any kind of technical complex system or solution we're trying to solve, right? So what did we do differently, right? We started saying we need to evolve. So it's almost like we had to embrace where we are, which is hard to do. We had to accept where we are, and we said, let's create a journey. Let's evolve from here. And what does that mean? So what does that mean? That means that we started to bring in new thinking. That means if you do the same things we've done before, what do you get? You get different results, or do you get the same results? We get the same results, right? So that's an interesting thing, but companies tend to do what they know best. They're like, oh, I've got 20 years of experience in this. I'm going to do this because that's what I know how to do. So we challenged ourselves and we said, let's do something different. And to do that, we had to bring in groups, right? Like Pivotal. We brought in groups that thought differently and challenged us. And we said, let's experiment, let's try different things, and let's see how does that impact us. We had lots of conversations around custom versus off the shelf, right? That's a pretty interesting conversation, because ideally we all love to customize what we want, because we have specific requirements. Like you go to business and you say, hey, would you like this feature? Has any business, when you went and said, would you like something, has any business said no? Right? They don't say no. They say, of course I want that feature. So we tend to make things complex, so to speak. And the whole conversation around build versus buy is about, can we live with a set of features that give you 80% or 90% of what you need, right? That's a challenge. That's where you come back and say, let's think differently. I can give you 90% of what you want within 6 months, or I can build something that has everything you want in the next 3 years. Which one is more appealing, Those are the kind of conversations. what else did we have on there? We talk about learnings, right? So we do a lot of retros, we do a lot of lesson learns on kind of where do we take things from here. So
yeah, and I think the key thing with the learnings is it becomes a cultural shift. I think it starts from the top and it comes down. Folks need to admit that it's okay to fail, right?
That's
it's okay to mess things up, fix it, identify it, and move on. I think a lot of times, you know, like Pierre said, you have 20 years of experience, you know best. And I think as organizations have moved to a more of a agile, you know, modernized architecture, we have folks who are unwilling to admit that failure. So I think we've been definitely trying to work on that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think the whole cloud strategy has been interesting as well, right? So you have these different teams where some people say, let's go all cloud. Or some people say, wait a minute, we can't take our legacy systems to the cloud. And what the lessons learned from there is more about, can we build things that are vendor agnostic? Meaning, regardless of where they are today, how easy is it going to be portable to where we need to go tomorrow, right? That's the kind of thinking that has to influence our decisions today. All right. So a little bit, we went through an example. So we both spent some time in business lines, in commercial lines, and we went through an example. So think about things where we started. We started with a large application. So even though this application was monolithic, was 1.2 million lines of code, it was generating $1 billion of revenue. So this was a mission critical app, right? It was our flagship app. So it wasn't like something you could just say, hey, don't worry about it. It had a lot of complexity in testing because we had data that had to be recreated manually, and we had a pretty complex testing process. It took weeks. In fact, a downstream testing could take up to a month to do. And that's why we had the monthly release cycles, you know? And we were tied to non-cloud platforms. So we've been through a journey in terms of infrastructure, right? Depending on our maturity, depending on the technology, we've been through different journeys, and we kind of ended up with a mix. We've also been through a few acquisitions and realignments that bring some interesting dynamics to the game. Like, oh, wait a minute, now we got 3 of this kind of system, and they're all 3 in 3 different technologies, right? So this is kind of where we started our journey, and our journey was what, 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2 years ago.
2 years ago. So a couple of things wanted to highlight where, you know, different thinking. What did we do in terms of different thinking, right? So we did a pivotal dojo, and I recognize a couple of people from there, right? We came in, and it was real. It was real. We got in there, and we really started challenging ourselves on how we think differently. And we'll go through some details of what does that mean. We experimented a lot of things, right? So everybody knows what test-driven development is, but we said, you know what, let's just actually do it as an exercise. So we had a small group, we paired a pivotal with a Liberty folk, and then we tried enforcing certain kind of styles and experimented. Let's see how the productivity worked, how things worked, and things like that. The outcomes of that were pretty interesting. There were things in the UI that were coupled. We took it out. There were a lot of latency in how we build things in our CI/CD pipeline. We took that out, and a lot of things like that. So today we're in a much better place, right? Where our relationships, and this is where it really starts, right? In the end of the day, you know, it's really not about IT. It's about people. We are people working together trying to solve something. And it's about relationships. It's about trust. It's about sitting on the table with the business partner and saying, hey, you know, let's whiteboard this together. What do you really want? Are you sure you want that? This is what it means. It's having that conversation, you know? And that's where we are today. We are today in a place that you could go in a meeting and you may not know the difference on who's IT or who's business. Because we just have conversations together, and we've kind of earned that trust to that point of maturity, you know. And
I'll say I just want to add that about the trust and maturity. I think one of the key things is, you know, you bring partners like Pivotal and others in, and you start doing this paired programming, and some of the business like, wait, you're going to have 2 people working on the same thing, but it's going to go faster. Like that person could be doing something else, you know. So it's like really. Even having some of our business partners sit and watch the pairs and see like the transfer of knowledge and understand the skills that are being shared so they can actually understand the value in after that initial investment, you see the cycle time and the key metrics start to pick up after that.
Yeah, very good, yeah. And another big distinction is we actually have cross-functional teams. Can you imagine, within our company, we have these different segregations, and we don't communicate as good as we should. Does anybody have that? Maybe, who wants to admit it? So we actually have cross-functional teams, meaning teams from different domains or different areas work as one team and have that ownership. Like, hey, we need to solve this, and we found that simplified a lot of process, right? Think about it. We in the end of the day, we're trying to move data from one state to another state. And the ownership of that data from different states are different folks. And if you don't have proper unity, if you don't have standardization, if you don't have a total ownership, we tend to build walls, and we tend to say, hey, I'm going to get my stuff done because that's all that's how my objective is based on, and then I'm going to just throw it to the other side of the wall. And we broke a lot of those walls.
I think the realignment to be product value stream driven.
That's right.
So we have UI developers, we have policy admin developers, finance, billing, publishing, rating, all in the same train working together. Like no handoffs, or kind of all working toward the same goals, and we can get things done rapidly.
That's right. And that, for us, that was the big aha moment where we are able to work together as one team, and it's simplified. Like, means we had a lot of the disagreements up front in closed doors, right? But when we came out of there, we had a better simplified solution. Yep. So how did we get there, right? So if I summarized on how we got there, we could summarize it, and it absolutely is a team effort, right? So it takes a team, it takes an army. We summarize it with 3 guiding principles, right? Now, how do you come up with only 3 architecture principles? Architecture loves to give principles. We love to give 15 or 25 different principles. And what we said was, principles are good, but if it doesn't resonate to the point that it changes the culture, it changes how you think, it's pointless. Like, it doesn't have the effect, right? And we wanted the effect. We wanted to make it real. And we had 3 principles. We said, whatever we build, you want to build to share, meaning build with reuse in mind. If you're building a service, is anybody else going to use that service? And what does that mean? Have that conversation with your team, right? We're built to scale. That means when we build something, don't think, hey, you know what, this is a pilot, we only need like 10 users. Think like, how do you get from 10 users to 200 consecutive users? And are you able to build something that you can scale? I'm not saying you have to solve for scale day one, but you have to keep that in mind. You have to keep an incremental architecture in mind to say, these are the things we need to do to scale, and from these 10 things, these are 3 things we need to do for the MVP. But we keep all 10 in mind, so we're moving in that direction, right? That's the thinking. And build to learn and adjust. So this is something culturally, it's difficult for us to do, right? We have a hard time thinking failure is positive. We have a hard time feeling like, if I failed, it was good. And what we've learned is that failure is excellent if you can fail fast, learn from it, and make a change, right? So that's the key. The key is, it is absolutely okay to fail as long as you fail fast and learn from it and make that change, right? And that's the thing. We have to have an environment where we give that ability to fail fast and learn.
It basically takes failure from oh no, I messed up, I don't want anyone to know about it, how can I fix it as fast as possible, to we call it make a mistake, get a cake. So like every 2 weeks a demo, like, hey, what did you mess up on this week? What did you learn? Now everybody knows about it, so we're bringing that stuff forward.
That's right. We took the shame away from it and said, hey, can you teach somebody else not to make that mistake again, right? But the trick is, you do it often enough that it's not a big deal, right? You don't say, hey, we've been working on this project for 3 years and I knew this project would never work, you know? None of us have said that, right? You don't go in that direction. So the major changes we made with these principles is that we said, we don't want to do POCs, we want to do pilots. That means we want to deploy to production early, and we want to get customer response. So we did a lot of A/B testing. We did a lot of experimentation. Like, it is amazing of the certain things we thought customers would like, customers actually don't like. Or customers have better yet, customer has a slightly different opinion, which is valuable to us, you know? Other things we did relating to that is we started this concept called business-driven architecture, which sounds crazy or sounds simple, but what we said was we have a vision, we have a strategy in terms of an architecture, but we need to prioritize our deliveries based on business outcome or business value. So our priorities are based on business value. Is what we want to do.
Yeah, and I think a key there is that we show wins, we show we can deliver to the business, and we gain that goodwill, right? So we start small, we get things done, and then if we want to test and learn some new technology or pilot something, you get a couple wins and get some goodwill first, and then it's a little bit easier to kind of work on those things.
That's right. And when business sees the value, when customers see something being produced, you get more time. Yep. It's like, hey, let's try something different. Hey, you get more money. You're like, hey, why don't you do this? So it becomes more real when it becomes real to them fast. So we try to do our MVPs within weeks, not years.
Yeah.
That's the difference in what we do. And here's another concept we did, which is pretty crazy. We chose manual over tactical, which is a crazy concept. Like we went to the business and we said, look, to do this strategic is going to take us 3 months, and we need the same resources to do it strategic from tactical. So we said we want to do it right the first time. So instead of spending time with those talent doing it tactical, meaning it's something like a Band-Aid, we'll fix it now, we'll come back and fix it later, we said we'll do it manually because the counts are low, but while we're doing it manually, we will work on it and we will deliver it within a month, within 30 days, within 60 days, and things like that.
I think to sort of make that real a little bit, so you're building a new platform, you want to get UI and you want to get experience features out, but you need to get policies to the general ledger, you need to do billing, you need to do claims. So rather than build some sort of a Band-Aid solution that would work just for that small little slice, we'll say, you know what, we'll just manually do it. We'll have some of our business folks sort of take that on the side while we build up volume. No big deal really to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the examples was related to payments.
Yeah.
To taking incremental payments, and we said we'll do it manually. And while we did that, we actually brought in a new billing system and went live with an MVP within what was it?
I think it was like 3 or 4 months.
3 or 4 months. So we were able to do it manually till the point that it mattered. But when it mattered, we actually had a new replacement system that was strategic and target.
It's a strategy when you have a very finite number of folks that can work on certain things. Yeah. We want them, like Pierre said, working on the strategic stuff.
That's right. So, all right. So we said let's make this real. So I'm going to have a little fun with this. I hope. I'm going to get to interview Brett the second time. The first time I interviewed him was for the job. How about that? So we're going to try this thing. I've seen CIOs do this all the time. So I said, hey, why shouldn't we do it? If they can do it,
we got to cross our legs, right?
That's right. Cool. All right. So the idea here, I'm going to ask him some questions. I have no idea what he's going to say. So this is a real interview, and we'll go from there. But while we're asking these questions, think about a question you want to ask, right? Let's have a conversation. Let's ask questions. So Brett, how has the business architecture vision changed?
I think from a business perspective, we're seeing more engagement from our business partners in architecture. Yeah. So I think gone are the days where all the smart guys lock themselves in a room on a colo for 2 weeks and they say, we're going to use this technology, we're going to roll it out in this timeline, and it's going to be great. Yeah. We're seeing our business folks take time, doing training on different technologies, understanding the value of different technologies on speed to market and quality of the products. And they're with us in the room talking about architecture. So to make this real, we had a recent colo about 6 months ago. And like you said, you're in the room, there's 4 or 5 architects, 5 or 6 key business leaders. And at times you can't tell who's who. I mean, we got our business leader up there drawing boxes saying, so what if we can connect this system to that system and then to this system? Like, will it make it easier to release this product, and will we be faster? And it's the architect sort of sitting back and saying, well, that's good, but like, what about this small tweak? We can get it done 3 months earlier. It'll be this much cheaper. Yeah. So I think it's that collaborative approach where there's one roadmap now. the business roadmap and the architecture roadmap are worked on together. It's not the architecture roadmap over here, the business roadmap over here, and we try to kind of squish it together.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. That's a sense of maturity.
Yeah.
I think we all long to have, where we make decisions together, and then you don't have to go and convince business why what we're doing is right.
Yep.
We actually, business goes and says, hey, here's what we want to do. And they are speaking architecture terms, right? And in those meetings, there are developers as well, right?
Correct. Yeah. So we try to bring in some of our key developers too to help make it real and bring up actual use cases, so we can sort of hone in on the actual how a little bit.
Sure. That way, at least we know we're not building something, ivory tower or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Not that we do that. How have we incrementally solved architecture?
Yeah, so I think you touched on it a little bit with changing that culture of being okay building things and potentially having to throw it away, but nothing should be thrown away in all of it, I guess. So
that's right.
We have this concept of we start with the skateboard, right? And it's in all of our slides. So we start with the skateboard. We may throw away the deck, but keep the wheels. And then we use the wheels to build the scooter, right? So the scooter's got wheels, it's got a steering column, and then once we're over that, we build a car, and we keep the column, we keep the wheels. So it's that incremental delivery, some stuff throw away, but at the core, you're building things that you can move forward. Yeah. And I think it's a little bit of a different shift from where developers are used to being.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the way I try to summarize it is I say that it's okay to make tactical decisions as long as everyone is conscious of the impact, meaning you have to come back and say you're going to rewrite it. That's the consciousness. It's do we agree, business, IT, everybody? This is a decision we're making together, right? But incremental is better because incremental says that there's value for moving in this direction. We're actually going to give you business value. But when we want to refactor, maybe 60-80% is reusable. Yep. We try to keep our KPIs there. Are we getting 80% reuse? Because technology changes all the time. If you take more than 2 years to do something, I bet you there's a better technology out there. So technology changes so fast. The customer needs change. The way customer thinks changes all the time. So we can't take forever to make strategic decisions. We have to incrementally deliver value while moving strategically in the direction we want. And that's why we call it evolution, because we actually evolve the architecture as we go, right? So when somebody says, when do you arrive? We never arrive because we always deliver, right? Yeah.
And I think you build something small like a skateboard, for example, it has use. It's a finished product, it can be used.
Yeah.
If you're building a car or something like that, an engine and half the body, you can't use it, right?
That's right.
It's just a piece of something. So we're trying to deliver things that the business can get their hands on and they can use as we evolve the architecture.
Yeah. Excellent. What was the biggest challenge that your developers were facing, and how did you solve it?
Yeah, so I think at Liberty, we've been trying to sort of put an emphasis on EMPS and trying to keep our developers happy so we can keep bringing in sort of the best talent. And I think one of the big challenges that is often overlooked as part of our Agile journey and the modernization is the tech stack the developers are using on a day-to-day basis, right? So, even my old days in personal lines, I know in business lines as well. WID, RAD slices, loading modules into your desktop. Changing a line of code and deploying it locally, 15, 20 minutes. You're working on a defect with a developer and you got to get it out. Let's go grab a cup of coffee because we got to wait for this thing to work. Yeah. So we can see how that is so frustrating for developers. So I think bringing in some of these new technologies and these new practices, getting them more hands-on, more rapid feedback to them, has made their lives a lot easier and a lot more enjoyable too.
Yeah, and I've seen ownership change. I've seen getting developers involved early helps the total ownership, right? So it's so many times I've heard developers say, I don't get the vision on where we are going, because we have visions, but to a developer it could mean, so many times a developer has told me, that's so high level. I understand conceptually what you're saying, but what does that mean to me?
Yeah.
And what I've learned is getting them involved helps them understand what it means. It's hard to explain if you're not involved, right?
Yeah, and I think we're seeing the business involved more with technology and with architecture. It's the flip side, right? The developers have ideas and they know our business. Some of them have been around for a long time, and they understand what the customer wants. So why would we not let them involve in some of the decision-making process at that level?
Absolutely, absolutely. So what's the biggest challenge from a requirements perspective that we face, and how did we solve that?
So, again, I think the days of spending an entire year writing a 50-page long requirements document where someone tries to answer every single question at once and then handing it over to us, I think those days are over, right?
Yeah.
I feel as though the challenges with that are you try to solve every single thing, and then 2 years later, you have a totally different set of challenges you're trying to solve, and it's totally irrelevant. So we're trying to add value quickly. So I think, we need to involve, like we talked about, involve the whole team in the requirements process. So when I work with my teams, my POs and my developers and Scrum Masters, you walk into that grooming session and you really, the role clarity should sort of go away. It's like, you're here, you have an opinion, what do you think needs to be done, what's the best way to do it, and let's write the acceptance criteria and the requirements in the way we're actually going to do the work, right? So I think, getting everybody involved has made it much clearer and easier for the teams to deliver.
Yeah, very good, very good. So a question somebody may ask is that, why now? Like, why did the model work now? What's different about it?
I think, as we've seen the industry change and the need to deliver things faster, from a leadership perspective, our company said, you know what, business side, we're going to invest, and you're going to go out and you guys are going to do training, and you're going to learn about the PO job family, and you're going to learn about Agile, and then IT, same thing. You're going to go out, you're going to learn about CI/CD, you're going to learn about some of these new technologies, and I think we've done that. We've seen some of the advantages, but now we're starting to bring everything back together, right, to scale that out.
That's right.
So I think, in its infancy, it was great for each of the sort of sides to learn, and now we're coming back together, working as one.
Excellent. And I think to add to that, the leadership model also matters. And we have a slide on that, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Because you got to have the right environment, you got to have the right culture, right? If you don't have the right environment, it's very difficult. And we had a lot of lessons learned. So there are a lot of mistakes, a lot of lessons we've made, other companies have made that we have learned. And we said, hey, let's not try to do the same things again. Let's try to experiment and do something a little different.
And I think
those two add to it.
I think you're just seeing mounting pressure in the insurance industry as a whole, like consolidation, and we're trying to grow, and we're trying to excel. So it's like something needs to change. A cultural shift needs to happen. That's right.
That's right. All right. Any question? There's no wrong question. Yes, sir.
Going back to your question on how you incrementally solve the architecture, can you speak to kind of how you approach the data side? Separating data out of the model.
Yeah. There's a reason that slide is not there. No, I'm just kidding. That's a great question. So basically, the gentleman asked, how did we solve the data side, right? In the end of the day, it is all about the data, right? I can tell you stories, but basically, the bottom line was that we brought in cross-functional teams. So we brought in teams who owned different representation of data, right? So we brought them in as one team, and we started to standardize it. So we said to ourselves, why are we keeping different standards in different places? So we went back and forth, and there's no best reference model out there, but we ended up choosing Accord as our reference model. Meaning, it doesn't mean we follow strict Accord, but it means we need something to say we need a reference, and then we can say this is our implementation of it. So we started building our own data dictionary, and we started building our own clear definition. So as the data moved from one place to another, if it was specific domain data, the position of that data and the representation of the data did not change. So what does that mean? That means that you don't have to translate, map, and all those expensive things. You don't have to do that. The data was still defined the same way across the ecosystem. So hopefully that helped.
Yeah, no, I think from a data perspective, at least from like interaction with the UI, we're trying to not pass that full data model back and forth every time you want to do a transaction, right? Add vehicle, add driver. It should just be the vehicle and the driver that you need to do. So we've been really trying to work on granularizing our APIs to just that piece of data that we care about.
That's right. That's right. Yet still having the reference
Correct.
to the whole snapshot. So that's another way not to lug your data everywhere you go. Just have a pass that you can access it. Very good. Sorry, right after that. Go ahead.
Yeah, hey, so I suspect you are a fairly heavily regulated environment. I work in a financial institution. We're fairly.
Yes.
Yep.
Has that had any effect on how you've gone through this transformation? Did it affect how you do requirements, how you can get to an MVP, what
Yeah.
I can
take a step back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we see a lot of that with like the filing process. So whenever you want to sell a new product or make a change to a product, there's a filing process with each of the states that you have to go through. So as part of the MVPs in identifying states and products to release first, you try to work with the states are a little bit more lenient with the filing process. So that kind of goes into the selection process. But I think it just requires us to do a fair amount of legwork before sometimes we can get started on something to ensure that a product's going to be approved.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we go global, like GDPR is a great example, right? It forces us to think a certain way in terms of how we want to keep our data. So we take a step back and say, wait a minute, we got to make sure that we are compliant in that, and what does that mean? So that also helps us be more consistent. Yeah.
It's a great story, great journey. What would you do different?
What would I do different? Well, it's a good question, right? So in the end of the day, right, I was sitting with a bunch of leaders, and we all sharing our reuse story, because we want to share, we want to be more reuse. We want if more people can share even within our organization, if more of us can share our assets, how much better we would be, right? But it ends up being three things: cheaper, faster, better. Right? Can you make things that are cheaper, that people can adopt easily? Can you make things fast enough so that somebody else is not redoing or replicating a similar kind of behavior, right? And can you do it better, that it has features? Like, why would I use yours? Well, because I get this and this and this free, right? So the things that I'm continuously learning is, how do we get to this model where you truly have a community of practice, where everybody is trying to, like an inner source model within the organization, where everybody's trying to contribute in building these shareable assets that are cheaper, faster, and better, right? Talent is another one that we got to continuously have a mindset of learning, right? Technologies are coming in faster than we can adapt, right? The reason we hold on to old technologies, old philosophies, is because of our inability to learn fast. Not because we cannot, because we need an environment that says, absolutely, we want you to learn. Like, this is a normal thing we do. We spend time learning. We spend time trying. So that's another big lesson, where we need to continually build a culture of learning, saying that we want to try different things, but we want to continuously learn, right? So like, why do I need a doctorate degree? I don't know. My wife asks me that question every day in the last 5 years. But it's about the learning. It really is about the learning, right?
Yeah,
it's that I feel like there's always more to learn.
I think just kind of going on that, like, we're such a large company, so we have certain things going on in one area. And I think we need to do a better job of showing the value and sharing it with other business areas.
That's
right. We've struggled, and we're kind of late to the game, I think, with showing the value of some of the stuff that we've done in evolution, and trying to share it with partners in personal lines and partners in GRS, which is our larger commercial. So I think we could do a better job of sort of evangelizing and sharing things throughout the entire company.
So you have certain areas that you are deeper in the business with this approach
Yeah.
than you are in certain other areas.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Our maturity level
Yes.
varies depending on where we are.
But
Absolutely.
it's like, sometimes people don't want to just be told things. They have to see it for themselves, right?
Yeah.
So we've done some like different walk-alongs where certain people from other teams have come to watch us work, and that's helped a lot too. But we're trying to get it all the way up the chain.
Yeah.
My question.
Go ahead.
So a big part of learning is learning from your customers. Did you
Yeah.
have any
Yeah.
challenges around getting feedback
Yeah.
from your clients?
Yeah, that's a good question. You want to take that one?
I mean, I think so. In this use case that we're talking about in business lines,
Yeah.
our main customers are agents,
Yeah.
right? So we have a deployment team that we work with, that deployment team and a UX team, that their entire job is to sort of go out, show UIs, and get that customer feedback. So I think that kind of plays into building those skateboards that are actually usable, so we can get things out to them faster, and they can actually get their hands on something.
Yeah, and A/B testing is another one, right? So we try different scenarios and we put them both in production, and we give a subset one and another different subset another, and then we evaluate that. I think where we want to be is really make data-driven decisions, right? Ideally, that's the place to be, at least from our experience. You want to collect the data, and based on the data, you want to say, okay, the data is telling us one thing different, and we think something different, so we need to challenge ourselves. In little places. So, for example, some of the things we're doing globally is we are looking at rating engines that actually optimize. So what we do is we feed the rating engine with rules and that has rules and algorithms with a whole bunch of past data, and then it comes in and says, can you derive a premium for this scenario? And it says, yes, this is the premium. But then it says, wait a minute, on real time it says, based on the historic data, we can afford to make these changes and we'll be more profitable, right? That is powerful, that we can make real-time data-driven decisions, that actually move us in the right direction, on the fly. Go ahead. Yeah, measures of success. Yeah.
It's funny. It's funny you asked that question.
It's on a slide somewhere.
Yeah, because we get asked at the beginning of every year, what are your measures of success going to be for architecture, right? So we are tied to a couple of 2 or 3 products that we're delivering, and they seem to get all the press, right? Premium dollars, policies in force. So how are we going to measure ourselves? I think some of the things we floated around were speed to market for like a new coverage or a new product, right? So we're trying to say, how fast could we do it the old way? How fast can we do it in the new way and show that win?
Yeah.
I think another one we've been using is we've been kind of putting our work into something called capabilities and integrations, right? So we count those and we measure those, but that speed to market one seems to be the one that plays best.
I think simplification in terms of our existing redundancies that we have, are we reducing, right? In the end of the day, it is about total cost, right? You think about total cost of ownership. It's not just the awesomeness we build, it's all the baggage we carry with it that also costs money, right? So we have to look at it from that perspective. And the business outcome, I think the business outcome has to be a key deliverable for architecture. In the end of the day, if you're not delivering business outcome, what's the point of architecture?
Yeah,
I mean, that's coming from an architect.
Yeah, I think another one that we work on as we build the new stack, we're trying to migrate premium from our older stacks to our newer stacks that we picked up over the years with acquisition. So premium dollars migrated flowing through the new stack has also been one that's hit home pretty well too.
Yep.
Some of the execs.
Yep. Go ahead.
Maturing or evolution around change management or the hearts and minds around the old model going to production versus
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah.
So I think from a change, so I know like my old role, probably 3 years ago, I mean, anytime we had to make a change to production, it was 7 tickets, line people up, we're going to do it off hours, we got to bring the app down. Now it's very much like the team's own change management. So me as a release train engineer, yeah, I'm aware that they're making a change, but because of the new technology, that the individual teams can manage bringing the app down, releasing, bringing it back up, or not even having to bring it down at all. So I think it's been more of a shift from a centralized approach with heavy governance out to the teams to own and manage using the new technologies.
Yeah, and I think the more we mature in CI/CD, in continuous integration and continuous delivery, and the better maturity we have in our regression testing, automated regression testing, can help tell the story. So I have seen teams that actually make changes and they have automatic deployments, right? So the deployments are every hour or there's a certain cadence to it. So they make changes, it deploys, whether it's Jenkins or Bamboo, it runs, it'll tell you a status on where it is, and then automatically, there is a certain way of escalating it to different regions. So they have a process. So I think the more mature we get in making changes that don't break stuff. I mean, that sounds common sense, but we need to think that way. We need to make changes that say that they can run independently.
Yeah.
And the better maturity we have in our scripts, the faster we can get there. Absolutely. It's a great question. Go ahead.
Yeah, are there like want to walk away and start down the path that you've headed, they can take away and say, start with these 3 things and it's going to point you in the right direction, kind of foundational.
Wow.
Ooh.
Okay.
Good question.
Good question. Top 3 things.
I mean,
you know,
I think the whole conversation that we had about having one roadmap, not an architecture roadmap and not a product roadmap, but one together with your business partners, taking the time, learn about technology, learn about Agile process, and being there, you know, with you throughout the planning process in that leadership sort of level. I think that's definitely a key one.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, you know, cross-functional trusting teams, right?
Yeah.
Building a maturity that regardless of our reporting structure, we can actually work as one team. So we are driven by the results, not driven by who we report to, right? So
Correct.
traditionally we are like, hey, I have to please my boss, which to a certain extent may be true, but we need to be delivery driven, right? We are knowledge workers. We should be inspired by what we're delivering. So definitely that cross-cultural thing, you know, and learning. I would say continuous learning. There has to be an emphasis to help continuous learn within the company. The company should build that environment. Like, you know, hey, Fridays take half day or take an hour or have innovation weeks, or, you know, have that culture where it is you know, that they have that ability to do it. Right? Many times people don't do it is because we are so busy. We are busy just trying to attend meetings. We are busy trying to deliver. We don't have time to learn. But we have to, as a leadership group, we have to kind of bring that culture of learning, saying, hey, it is important to learn. Let's make the time to do it.
Yeah, and I think
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Lots of good information here
Yeah.
around the architecture
Yeah.
in terms of how you changed your delivery model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about from the compute or your infrastructure side? Do you have
Yeah.
to work with those teams in terms of how you were delivering as well? And
Yeah.
can you share any of that?
Yeah, absolutely. You want me to?
Yeah, I'll jump in.
So we, our leadership has put a strong emphasis of moving towards a cloud-ready or cloud enablement environment, right? So it doesn't mean everything has to go to cloud. It means that we need to build systems, build services that are cloud-enabled, that have that ability to shift for it. So anything new, we've been kind of saying, why not build services on the cloud? So we've been working closely with them in terms of having the ability to have the infrastructure ready. So I know in global, infrastructure supports with technologies, and they support with governance around here's the tools and technologies, but we have cloud engineering teams within the development teams that actually own that framework, like how to make it real. You know what I'm saying? So it comes back to we need to own the whole process.
You've integrated
Yeah.
your cloud engineering team with some of your
That's right, in the global space we have.
In the U.S. space, I would say it's a little bit more like we have more of a centralized team that's you know managing our pipeline and some of the technologies that we use. But we've embedded some of those folks, at least when we first started building everything, right in directly into our delivery teams as well. And it may have been like a 6-month sort of
That's right. So
model
we
type
have the
deal.
DevOps team, which is like the cloud engineering team,
Yeah.
that is part of the delivery team. So absolutely.
Yeah.
So when developers are sitting and we have a problem, we have a developer who's a DevOps developer as part of the cross-functional team.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
Because that's where it gets real. It gets real at that point of I'm trying to push something and it's not working. Like I don't want to put a writ to, you know, or a request, or I don't need to, you know, send an email to somebody to help me. I need somebody on the phone right then and there. And that's what brings the excitement.
And it's something that once you get to a certain critical mass and level of applications built and knowledge within your development base, it could be sort of like one of those rotational type deals, right? Like they don't have to be embedded forever. It's something that you kind of work through as demand.
And keep in mind the maturity is different in different places, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about our success for a specific type of project. You're welcome. You're welcome. We could take a couple more. Yeah, go ahead. So I didn't hear the question fully, but it's something to do with cloud and operations.
I think she said, have you gotten over like the divide between the development teams and the operational teams, and maybe how have you done that?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of our offerings, at least in the U.S. space, we did embed some of the resource within the development teams that help them make them feel like they're a part of the team. And there's a lot of self-service offerings as well too, right? So I think in the past it was a lot of us versus them, ATS versus developers. Something went wrong. Oh no, it's you guys. No, it's you guys, right? Yeah. So I think bringing in those cloud engineers and embedding them on the teams has definitely helped us get over that sort of old school divide.
Yeah, and I think absolutely, and I think one of the culture shifts we're trying to do is, and this may sound lame, but you build it, you own it, right? So we're trying to put that ownership back to, wait a minute, what you build, you will manage, right? And we do have certain teams, that are specialized, that do own whatever they build. Some applications are so big that they do have operational teams, but there we look at rotation. So we say that, hey, people who are doing new development should rotate within the operational space and come back. So let them experience the journey, right? We've solved many a times we've solved problems where we've not seen efficiency in two different groups by letting them rotate and join us and feel the pain, or feel the love. That's probably better, So absolutely, I think there are techniques. Like in the end of the day, we have to assume good intent. There's nobody sitting there like saying, I don't want to do my job. I just want to sit here and make money for free. Everybody's trying to work hard, but I think we have to help people, be more motivated, be more effective, and there are techniques to do that.
Well, I think the key is like, those engineers need to be a part of the successes too. Yeah. I think in the past,
that's a great one.
The development teams got a lot of the praise for new products and big projects getting delivered, but the operational folks are just as important as well. So they need to be a part of the successes too.
That's right.
How do you put competition into the way you build your teams? How do you put competitive juices into it to continue to continue to grow?
Yeah, that's a great question.
That's a great question.
Yeah. So I'll tell you a couple of things. I mean, you can add to it. I think it's important for peers to recognize each other, right? It's very important. In fact, I just got an email from someone saying, "Hey, so and so came into town and really helped me." I mean, they didn't have to go above and beyond in sharing some of the stuff, but they did. And we were talking to that manager. Don't know who the manager is, but we're reaching out. This developer was reaching out, copied me because this developer is reporting to me, and I encouraged it. I said, absolutely. I think peer-to-peer recognition is important. I think it's as important as hierarchical recognition. And we're trying to move away, at least in this culture shift, at least in our minds, we're trying to move away from the hierarchical recognition. I mean, that's important. That's our job. We get paid well to do our job. So let's agree to that, but keep that aside. But it's really about the day-to-day recognition. Like, do you feel valued for what you do? Do you get recognized for doing that extra effort? And then it's pride of ownership. I mean, do you really enjoy what you do? It's like, what? I love my systems. I take pride in what it is. And increasing that pride builds that healthy stuff.
And I think from a feedback perspective too, as we're looking to hire someone or looking to promote somebody, you're getting feedback from people at that level and above them, but you're also getting feedback at the people that those folks are mentoring and coaching too, right? Like people that are learning and growing in their careers, they want to see the people that are helping and working that deserve it are the ones to get promoted, right? So we're trying to look for feedback from all avenues, not just from folks at like the level that person's going to be at, I think, which is a slightly different shift, I think. So.
Yeah, excellent. All right, one more question, and we'll have questions at the end if we have time. Yeah.
So while you're going through the transformation, how did you balance the desire to keep the lights on, keep the business going with making the transition?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question, and that's not an easy answer because there's fun work and there's work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
Right. And that's always a struggle.
That's a difficult one because at the beginning, in order to get the ball rolling and get things moving, we had to make some changes and set some teams up, and we said these folks are only going to be working on the new stuff and the new tech, and some of our best developers have to be the ones working on, the monolith and keeping the money coming in, right? So we've been trying to do rotations and pull people in. We have this new initiative, we call it Platform Vision, where we're trying to bring new technology and modernization everywhere, not just to the new stack. So we've slowly but surely tried to spread things out, but it was definitely something at the beginning that we
It's
struggled
definitely
with.
not an easy one. I would say we got more to learn there. But I think trying to look at, you don't have to build new in new development. You can build new in maintenance mode as well, right? Yeah. So there are things where we, in operational, where we say, wait a minute, this is inefficient and is always causing defects. And the team can come together and say, let's just build a new process around it. And that team can do it because they are the subject matter experts to it. So there are ways to bring the excitement of new development in different places. But we've looked into rotating folks because we want to keep that talent, right? So if you're learning new technologies, we got to spread that knowledge of new technologies, and we have to spread that within the operational space. So as we move to a you build it, you own it, it's a lot easier, because the same team, we bring work to the team, and the team has a certain percentage to fix defects. But in some of the legacy stuff, we do still struggle on, wait a minute, how do we keep them excited? How do we keep things, let them have a pride of ownership and things like that? I think there's no easy answer, but the engagement is important. Transparency, engagement, communication, making them part of the team, right? Using them as experts. They really like that because they are the experts. Like, hey, we're trying to build this. Can you tell us what are the top 5 problems you face, right? They know because, trust me, they sit and deal with these on a day-to-day basis, right? Again, honoring those who have the right talent, So, but it's a tough one. It's a tough one.
I think we've been lucky too, because we have some developers that work in that space that understand the importance of it, right? Like, without me making all this money, you guys aren't doing all that new cool stuff, right? So it's nice that we have some folks that really recognize that and understand the whole situation.
Excellent. So we got a couple more slides, and then we'll take some more questions after that. So the hope of doing the interview was to make it a little bit more real. We can say a lot of things, but we really wanted to kind of get to specifics, and that's why we wanted to kind of have it an open dialogue. And I really appreciate the questions. I mean, that was awesome. Hopefully we answered. A couple of things we want to talk about. One is around some specific technical lessons learned, right? So these lessons are important because these lessons can be costly. Whether we paid the cost or another organization paid the cost, it is important, right? And we wanted to highlight a couple of things that we feel, and I'm sorry about all the verbiage, so don't worry about what's written there. So there were 3 things when we went back and we said, 3 things we really learned about our journey, right? One is around source of record, right? So we struggled, and I would say many years, we struggled in modernizing a source of record. We have proprietary systems that are complex, that are brittle, that have this definition. We use a proprietary IAA model, which is an insurance model, to build these things, and they work great. We got $4 billion running through it, right? But they're brittle and things like that. And we went through a whole different experimentation on, can we modernize it, can we upgrade it, can we extract it. We tried all different models, and in the end of the day, what we realized is let's take a step back and let's just simplify it, right? Which is an amazing concept because we as humans love complex things and we love to solve complex things. And we took a step back and we said, can we simplify this model? And we started building this new stack in parallel. So we ended up building a new source of record that we are transitioning our customers from the old to the new, and that really helped us. Standardization of data, like I think you brought up, the gentleman at the back brought up data, right? In terms of data, so we've learned a lot of lessons where mapping, extraction is very expensive. Like, we don't know what this data means, and we got to map it here, and the quality is not good, and things like that. So spending time on standardizing, having a catalog, having a data dictionary, having something that defines, having a governance. We have this, what we call as lightweight governance, like make decisions fast, right? So we have a governance group that helps us. Like, here's a new field. We want to identify this. We want this standardized across the whole ecosystem, right? So that was a big learning from it, and then this whole what we're calling as downstream integration, right? So we have this, lack of a better word, with this huge hub. Everything comes here, and then it goes everywhere, right? So we got this huge thing in the middle, our point of success or point of failure, depending on how you look at it, or depending on the day, that comes in the middle, and it's so complex. It's so complex, and most experts have retired or they're no longer with us. And it's an interesting place to be in terms of, and we struggled with it because we're like, okay, what do we do with this? How do we figure out what the requirements are? Like, we went all over the place. Like, we started finding old documents, putting it together. And what was interesting is, in the end of the day, our aha moment was, we were talking as a group, and someone said, how did we do insurance in the beginning? In 1950, what was it? I don't know, 1958 or whatever the date was. How did we do insurance? And we actually whiteboarded how we did insurance. And what we found out is we identified the critical paths, right? And we said, these are the critical paths, and this is what we need at minimum, regardless of who says it, and then let's wait and see what else someone says. And we found that that's all we need, and the things we missed, we added. So instead of trying to solve a complex problem, we found the minimum critical paths to our success, and we started building on them. Yeah. All right. So another thing that really helped is our leadership model. So I do have to confess that doing my doctorate in organizational leadership, I was experimenting a little bit. So hopefully the experiment went okay. So, but there are many models we tried. There's many models I tried, and here's just one model, right? And this is what the model says. The model says that there are 3 things you have to keep in mind towards the success of delivery. You want to keep execution in mind, because if you don't deliver, well, the story's over. There's nowhere to go, right? You got to keep continuous learning in mind. That means you have to keep learning so that you produce better things. And the third thing says you must experiment. That means you cannot assume you know what the answer is. You have to try, you have to get feedback, and you got to send it back. And in all these 3 things, so when we talk about experimenting, we talk about embracing change, right? This is a tough thing. People, we don't like to embrace change. Like, oh, here's another reorg, or here's another change. We got to embrace change. Change is the new norm. That's what I tell folks. Change is the new norm. Embrace change. Build things that are not hurt by change. We got to embrace change. The other one is fail fast. Failure is not a bad thing as long as you learn from it and you fail fast, right? And work styles. You don't have to force everyone to work a certain way. We found that from an environment perspective, some teams work better distributed, some teams work better being in one location, and some teams prefer coming and meeting at certain times. So in our group, everyone has a different kind of engagement model, right? But they do have an engagement model. There's accountability, but they're all different. We don't force a certain model. We try to figure out which ones gives us efficiency. And then in terms of continuous learning, education, training, talent, intelligence is talent management. We gotta be, there are so many times Brett and I have had discussion, wait a minute, this team is not producing as much as it can. So instead of getting upset with the team, we try to find out what's missing in the team. What kind of talent is missing in the team, and we introduce it. We say, hey, you got a new team member, and the team member brings some disruption and bring some change.
Well, and ultimately, that team isn't delivering, and it falls on us to fix it, right?
That's
so
right.
If we spend time blaming and figuring out what's negative, it does nothing. So it's on us to find the right person, the right fit, and fix it.
Yeah. And from an execution, we talk about delivery. That's important. We talk about technology as enablers, right? We can't force technology saying, hey, use this magic technology and it'll solve all your problems. The technology must be an enabler to help, meaning technologies change all the time. We got to figure out how to build it right. And measures of success. I think somebody mentioned it. You got to have clear measures of success. Are we actually progressing in the right direction, right? We got 4 minutes, so I'll skip the last slide. So questions? Any other questions?
We questioned them out.
I think we questioned them out. Yes.
Yeah, so you guys mentioned earlier about the build it, you own it, you fix it
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in that new stuff, that's pretty traditionally easy to kind of put those guiding principles into the developers that are building that.
Yep.
How do you bring that back to some of the legacy systems and
Yeah.
kind of impose those guiding principles on those?
Yeah. It's a great question. I think at first we struggled with it, right? Because it's bringing new thought to existing stuff. You can bring new thought to new stuff, but it's hard to bring new thought. But again, I think if you think about it like, here's our existing process. If you change the question and say, how do we evolve our process so that we can engage in that way, right? So we changed our thinking. We said, can we change our process in such a way that they are more modular, they are more in a way that we can address it?
And I think giving those teams a little bit more freedom, design-wise, like where can we implement a microservice here, microservice there, instead
That's
of
right.
having a module that's part of the monolith. Like giving them more freedom
That's right.
allows them to have more fun developing, but then they have a little bit more sense of ownership as well too.
That's right.
Right? So it's like kind of double-edged sword there.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, we'll be here for any other questions, but thank you so much for listening and having the conversation.
Thank you.